Welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Alan Hidalgo. How you doing today, Alan?
Hey Ben, how are you? I'm doing good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we've known each other for a couple years now, and I'm really excited to bring you on the show because you have an amazing story of really kicking ass and taking names from a young age. So I really want to dive all up in that, and I want to
Okay.
ask you, what is your story?
Yeah, man, thanks for those words. And yeah, we've been knowing each other for a while. It's interesting because Ben, you actually live in New Orleans. I grew up most of my childhood in Baton Rouge, which is only like 40 minutes up the road. And I've been going to New Orleans, since I was a kid, all the time. I love New Orleans too. So, yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit about my story. Thanks for the introduction. Long story short, I'm first of all, I'm in business. I'm involved in numerous different things in business. I I'm the computer guy, or I'm this guy. I just kind of have found all kind of streams and ways to make money, and now I'm kind of getting into the side of it where I'm helping and teaching a lot of people to do that online. Long story short, man, my journey into entrepreneurship. I was diagnosed when I was 6 years old with ADHD. I was also diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, ODD, whenever I was, I think 7. And pretty much what those kind of do is when you have ADHD, your attention span is very short, and so you can get bored very easily. So even today, as I'm much older now, I get bored. If I'm in one spot for too long, I get very bored. If I'm doing the same thing all the time, I get very bored. And then ODD is basically just someone who's oppositional. So anytime my teacher would tell me, be quiet, don't do this, I know a lot of people have different reasons why. Sometimes it's just their background or their story. They want to make a lot of money. For me, I was diagnosed with things where it kind of brought out my rebellious side. I had to take medicine for ADHD and stuff like that. So that contributed to me wanting to get, because as entrepreneurs, a lot of us are going against the grain. A lot of us are going against the 9 to 5, or going against the standard way that society paints most middle class people. So anyway, Ben, yes. So I was diagnosed with that. Moving on, whenever I was 12 years old, I had my first, I would say, experience into entrepreneurship. I was in middle school at the time. Yeah, middle school at the time. I wanted to always, I was always never satisfied with things. So I always wanted like the newest game for Xbox. I always wanted the newest this, the newest that. So a lot of times, I didn't grow up rich or anything like that. I had low to middle class parents majority of my life. And they wouldn't always give me things I wanted. So my dad told me, son, you're going to have to go and work. You're going to have to go and find your own way to make money. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't waste any time, crying and throwing tantrums. I was like, what, I could find a service in my area? What if I could do landscaping? What if I could do, whatever it is, and make some extra money? So I actually started a pet boarding business when I was 12. And basically where people need their pets watched, they on vacation, they need someone to watch them. That was a service I provided. So I did that. I spread through word of mouth when I first started. I was 12 years old. I ended up getting really good at SEO, built a website, I actually went from being nobody, not being known, to being the number one pet boarding business on Google in my parish. Parish is like our counties if you're not from Louisiana. I was the number one in the parish, Ascension Parish at the time. I was getting calls all the time on. I was doing this mainly through summer and mainly through holidays. I had business cards. I was going to expos, getting my name out there. And I got big. At 12 to 13 years old, I had pets always booked up. They were all in my parents' house. I had this extra room in my parents' house where we were doing this, and in the garage. My brother also helped me. He was kind of like my employee in a sense. And so
Well,
Uh,
seems like we lost you for a second. Can you step back there? Last thing we heard was your brother was working with you.
okay, yeah, sorry. So my brother was working with me. He was kind of like my employee in a sense. And so really, Ben, that was my start into, I know this podcast is mainly about entrepreneurship. So that was my start into entrepreneurship. They did the business for a few more years. And then when I got high school and started taking some advanced college level classes in high school, I had to stop. I put a lot of my focus back into school. But I had made good money, you know, for my age, saved up a lot of money. I even had an offer from someone who wanted to buy the brand from me. In my community, there was a veterinary clinic, which was the biggest competitor. They actually were interested in my company. So it was crazy, man. So from there, dude, I kind of had reset my mind about business and the way the world is. My first journey after that, I got into multi-level marketing. I think a lot of us did when we were young. I was in Vima, I was in Wake Up Now, and you know, it was a good networking experience. But I don't think those are great vehicles in today's age. I think they're way too competitive and they're not efficient. You know, a lot of these companies want you to go and sell to people in Starbucks coffee shops. Well, if I can set up a landing page or a click funnel and sell to 5,000 people with one ad, you know, it's a lot more effective. So I realized that, right? So, dude, I mean, I got into entrepreneurship again when I was 18, left high school. I went to LSU. I think we both met each other through LSU. You went finances and business at the business school. Is it going in? Are we
Oh,
still there?
yep, yep.
Okay, it said I was disconnected. Oh, sorry. So yeah, I was that kid wanting to go into business school. Same thing. Got all excited, thinking I was going to land the big accounting job at a big four accounting firm, like Ernst and Young or something like that. And that's what I was kind of set on. It's weird. I was in entrepreneurship at 12, but didn't see it as like the way I could support my life. Job. Uh, so,
Hey, you
long story short, dude, that
kind of
that's
cut
that
out
that
again. So you said you didn't see entrepreneurship as a way that you could support yourself. Uh,
yeah. Okay, you hear me?
yep.
Yeah, so it was kind of, and I'm sorry about the internet. I'm in an Airbnb in Seattle right now. I don't, I, it seemed like the connection was good, but anyway, yeah. So I thought, you know, I would have to go in the corporate world, and that's kind of what I was encouraged to do. But soon into college, man, I mean, luckily for me, I did get decent grades in high school, so 80% of my tuition was covered, but I had to pay for the remaining 20%. So I was still responsible, and I didn't get any. I didn't do loans. I didn't go to school, anything like that. And I basically just found creative ways, dude, in college to make money. You know, I was selling things online. I started an education company on forex trading. I actually became well known in forex space for a while. I started actually taking cars and turning them into taxis with Uber and Lyft without having to drive a car. I was able to generate six figures from that business. And I just got into all kind of different side hustles. And eventually, my main business that I started, that was kind of like my foundation company. I started a company called Total Leverage Solutions. I was a junior in college. I became really good at marketing, very good at PR, very good at lead generation services, using the internet to generate leads for companies and businesses. I was in a fraternity my first year of college, and then I quit. I got out of that, and I started hanging out with a lot of the football players at LSU. And a lot of them went to the NFL and stuff like that. And I got really good. I started doing marketing PR for some of my friends that are in the NFL now that went to LSU. You know, LSU is a top NFL football school, recruited school. So it was an interesting. The Cowboys actually negotiate his contract.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, we're having some technical difficulties, but it seems like we're back.
Okay. Um, that hotspot, if you think that would be better.
Yeah, let's definitely try that. Because we are live, but if it keeps if it keeps cutting out on us, we'll definitely need to redo this at a different time.
Okay.
But ladies and gentlemen, this is the fun of doing things live. Get to improvise. So while we're improvising, I have a quick joke for everybody who's
All right,
watching
can
and
you hear me?
listening. Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you
All
want to
right,
do your
wait.
joke?
Oh yeah, I promised the people a joke, so I gotta tell the joke now. So what cat do you never play cards with? Alan, do you know the answer?
What cat do you never play cards with? What cat do you never play card? I don't know.
It's a cheetah.
Oh my god. Oh, there we go. That's
All
funny.
right, so let's get back into it.
Okay, what was the last thing you heard me say?
So we heard you say a lot of your friends from LSU, which go Tigers, were going into the NFL because LSU is just awesome like that.
Yeah.
And you had relationships with them, and so you're leveraging your knowledge of marketing and PR too. And then that's kind of when it cut out.
Yeah. So I got really good with PR. I got very fascinated with sports for a while too. I actually negotiated a contract for my friend Lewis Neal. He plays for the Cowboys, and he was actually the first athlete to sign with Young Money Sports, which is Lil Wayne's sports agency. And I was the one to help him negotiate that contract. So I realized, I have a really good talent with marketing and PR. So that led me to do a lot of other marketing for other athletes. I started an e-commerce startup called Soul Searching, which was a sneaker company with my friend Landon Collins. He's in the NFL, and Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. I've got a lot of different people that I got into the business that became brand ambassadors for the company. So I got good at marketing, dude. And I also realized if I could do this for athletes, I know I could do this for businesses. So I had a friend in college. His dad owned a construction company in Louisiana that was already successful. And his dad never had used Facebook, never had used Instagram or Google to market. Everything was through word of mouth. And his son, who was friends with me, still is, he actually asked if I could help him figure that stuff out. So I met with his dad. I didn't charge anything. His dad put a few $100s in ads, and I ran them and made everything. And dude, within the first 30 days, we brought in $200,000 of new contract value for that guy. And then, to this day, I still work with him. So yeah, I also do lead generation mainly in medical space, mainly in medical and home improvement. And so I've just been kind of doing it since then, bro. I took a lot of the money and reinvested in Airbnb rentals, Uber cars, ATMs, investing into small startup companies. That's kind of where I'm at now.
That's awesome. I'm curious. You mentioned how when you were 12, after you ran your business, there was that shift
Yeah.
of you didn't think of things the exact same way. What was that actual shift?
Whenever I was 12.
Yeah. What, like you said, the shift happened, so you thought differently. What was the difference in thinking?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good question. So the difference in thinking probably, dude, was realizing that I could control my income a lot more than I had originally had thought. So growing up my whole life, especially under middle class parents, I was very accustomed to hearing things in the house like, we can't afford that, we can't do this, you can't do that. My boss, this, if we can't go on vacation, just and for the longest time growing up, just because I was a kid, I was thinking, yeah, your life basically is controlled by another human being your whole life, and you're not allowed to change anything, and you just suck it up, and that's just how you live your life, right? So when I was 12 and realized that I could actually make a full-time income on my own without listening to anyone or being under anyone's authority, I realized, wow, I can control my destiny a lot more than I thought. So my shift in thinking probably was just about the control over my life, and being someone who got diagnosed with ADHD and ODD, uh, that was big for me because I never wanted to listen to other people. I always thought it wasn't that I thought I was better or was arrogant. It's just like I knew confidently myself that I could do things in a way where I thought was better and achieve great results. So, I mean, that was probably the shift, dude.
So has that mindset changed from then until now?
Not really. I mean, I wouldn't say it changed much. I probably do think, when I was younger, I was a lot more, my behavior wasn't good. So I was a lot more, immature in certain ways and never listening to anyone or taking anyone's advice. Whereas I would say now I still have the general theory that I can control my destiny. However, I do listen to people who are of worth to listen to. I do listen to my mentors. I do listen to my advisory board, people that are of what I consider of great value, that can guide me through things that I don't necessarily know. So I do recognize that I don't know everything because I don't, and I don't think anyone really does. But I still know that I can do it a lot better than most people, you know?
So what's the criteria that you use to judge the value of somebody that you would listen to?
Um, okay, so it really depends, right? So the way I have my life set up, Ben, is I have different departments. So I have business, I have love relationships, I have improvement as far as speaking, just different things I can do. And I think everyone's in their own categories. Just because someone's a billionaire doesn't mean that they're worth listening to when it comes to relationship advice. Just because someone's poor doesn't mean that they can help you in an area that they're good at that you're not good at. So one thing I do is what first thing you got to identify is what value are you trying to get? Is it monetary? Is it financial? Is it love? Is it spiritual? What is it, right? So once you identify what that is, okay, let's just do entrepreneurship and money because that's what everyone's here for, right? So if it's entrepreneurship and it's money, okay, it's probably going to be someone that has the net worth, that has they've sold the companies, they have the money to back them up. I've seen so many people online that are in the corporate world that can talk and talk and talk and talk, but they're not worth more than $1 million, okay? Or they're not even worth sometimes half $1 million. Now, I'm not judging someone's success based on how much they're worth or how much money they have or what they've done. But if I want to be wealthier, which is my goal always, then I do want to listen to people who already have that wealth. So I look for people. Usually, man, I look for people that are at least 10 to 15 years older than me, minimum. Okay, in entrepreneurship, they're obviously worth north of $10 million. They've built a company, they've sold a company of some sort, they've done things like that. They have credibility, they're respected in their niche, in their industry, and people that are basically very desired. So if you see, like, I actually made a really good connection with Gary Vaynerchuk, where I basically had contacted him. He heard about my startup, and knowing that he is the guru of a lot of the millennial startups, I thought, this is the perfect person. And a few weeks later, he was on my advisory board for my startup company. So, I look for people like that. I look for people that have the experience, that have the numbers to back them up, and they can really help me, out with that. If I find someone who doesn't have a lot of SEO or a lot of credibility online, then it does discourage me because I think if someone produced so much, like someone would have written about it. Uh, but I do know there's a lot of people that's also private with their money. So it really just all depends, bro. But you got to first listen to what are they saying, and then what are other people saying about them. Boils down to that, I think, too. Because anyone can say anything about them, but what are other people saying about them? Is it backing up what they're saying? So that's kind of the criteria that I look through, dude.
That's smart. It's interesting how you think about that and like the process that you go through. So with somebody like a Gary Vee, for example,
Yeah.
how did that conversation go between you two to where you went from not knowing him at all to now he's on your advisory board. Like, how did you actually go about that conversation? How did that go down?
So a lot of it was persistence, dude. And I think persistence is probably the number one thing that a lot of people tell me that I'm good with. And I think it does have to do with ADHD and stuff like that. We're just naturally, we push, 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 push. We don't let nothing stop us. We don't get in the way. So I knew Gary Vaynerchuk was a huge player that would be phenomenal if I can get involved. Part of me wasn't fully sure that he'd even reach out or we even would get access to him. It was a very big deal to me at the time. And this was about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I want to say. So keep in mind, he was still big back then too. So what I did basically was we started getting a lot of press on our company. I saw that Gary started recently at the time, Vayner Sports. Vayner Sports is his sports agency. He co-owns it with his brother, AJ. And I saw that they were brand new to the sports agency space. So me thinking logically, I'm thinking, Gary Vee probably would love to get as many athletes to his agency as possible. That's the business model of a sports agency. And I had a lot of connections to a lot of guys in the NFL. So I thought, what if I could bring value to Gary? What value could I bring to Gary? And that is what was the thing. There's thousands of people hitting him up on a daily basis, but no one's bringing him value. So if you can find a way, and I think this is important to your previous question, if you can find a way to bring value to people, no matter how big they are, dude, they will listen and they will give you the time of the day. So I realized, I have connections to these guys. I basically had reached out and sent an email. And I said, hey, look, Gary, I'm starting this startup company. It's based on athletes. We'd love to have you involved and love to hear from you. I have some athletes that I could connect you with and introduce you to. And I listed their names, and these guys are huge names in the NFL. I'm not going to name them on the show, but they're huge names in the NFL. And basically, I just sent my email, and I basically just let it go. I stopped thinking about it. Literally 3 days later, dude, and within the first 2 days, I didn't get any response. So I was thinking, this is dead. Third day, I checked my email. I see Gary V at Gary Vayner Media responded back. It was his direct email. And he actually said, yeah, Alan, I'd love to meet up. I'd love for you to come to New York. Let's have lunch. So from there, dude, he put me in touch with AJ, his brother, who does his whole scheduling. We got on the phone. We figured out the whole thing. And I actually had dinner. It was supposed to be lunch, but it turned into dinner with Gary V. We met at a restaurant in Midtown Manhattan. And I brought two of my athlete friends to the actual meeting too. So he was very excited. And from there, dude, we were able to sit down and talk. We probably were there for like 2.5 hours. So I was sitting there at the dinner with Gary and my friends for 2.5 hours. We were covering sports, business talk, everything. And then there was an opportunity in the conversation where I talked about our startup and telling him, we really would like to have you an advisory board member. And I listed out reasons why it would be of value to him. And then from there, dude, by the end of the conversation, he was all on board. So, and ever since then, we stayed in touch. So that's basically how it went down.
That's awesome. So what I think one of the critical lessons here is you made it valuable for him.
Yeah.
And like you brought some serious stuff to the table that he would have to have spent a lot more time to go out and do himself. And like you already had those relationships, then you brought that relationship capital to the table. That's fascinating.
Correct. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's essentially what happened.
So with that company then, and it seems like you have, and I know that you have a lot of different things going. How do you decide like, okay, today is Monday. You're like, all right, my Monday to-do list is like, how do you decide how to allocate your time and like what actually is your biggest focus right now?
So I mean, I probably allocate it based on I would say based on the daily value of it. So in other words, I spent a lot of my time, especially when I was building up my income streams, on uh, focusing on things that bring money the same day, focusing on things that I could that I could start up and that I could start seeing money with, within the first day, the first week, the first month, and basically just doubling down on those streams, doubling down, because those things really were the things, and are the things that support my everyday lifestyle. So I would say, my marketing companies was one of those things where I could literally see money come in right away. I could see money right away. My Uber car fleet business, I could see money right away. My Airbnb rentals, things like that. I see money come in right away. So a lot of my focus on a day to day is on just scaling those things and growing those things. But I do have things in the back burner that are my bigger, what I call my bigger projects. These are the projects that I hope to one day sell for a 7-8 figure exit one day. But these aren't things that necessarily are going to bring me income tomorrow or the next week or the next month. Those are things that I spend less time on. But they're little by little being built up. And I know one day, those things pay off. But I put a lot of my attention, honestly, on the things that are currently generating cash flow. And I look to expand that. My main focus right now, to answer your question, so about, I would say, a month and a half ago, I actually started a program called Car Fleet Academy. And basically it's an online educational company for the everyday entrepreneur, everyday person out there. And I teach people how they can actually make six figures with Uber and Lyft without actually driving a car, and how they could start their own taxi business leveraging Uber and Lyft. So we live in the millennial age, we live in the modern age. So Amazon's out there, they make billions of dollars, but yet they own no products. You have Uber that makes billions of dollars, but they own no cars technically. You have Airbnb that has thousands of rentals on their website. They make billions of dollars. They own no real estate. Okay, now these companies are starting to get into owning these assets, but they didn't start on that. So I've figured out ways to leverage those platforms and do what I call arbitrage, which is basically making money off of the value they bring and the value you bring, cutting out the risk and making maybe not 100% profit, a smaller profit, but it's a guaranteed profit. And it's one that you don't have to put a lot of risk into. So I focus a lot of my streams on that. I'm teaching people how to currently do this with Uber right now. And I've gotten a lot of traction for it. So that's kind of the main project right now at the moment. I've had a lot of people enroll in the company since launching it in August. So I'm very excited to see what it does.
So I want to revisit this because I'm very fascinated to hear how to make six figures with Uber, because that's epic. But I think what you brought up was so critically important that we have to touch on it, which is there are some things which are like your day-to-day make money now things, and then there's like your higher level, like make money in a couple years things, right? And I think that is so critical. And so I want to touch on those two ideas. With the make money now things, how do you go about identifying the opportunities for that, and like taking action on it to where you do start to make money now? Like, how does that actually go down? How do you go through that process?
Okay. So I look for things that I was thing is identifying what would make the most sense for you and what could actually bring money the quickest. So what's very interesting from what I found is that most of the businesses that bring money right away are the least complicated businesses to start. Okay. So I narrow it down to this, dude. Think about it. Every single person needs transportation. Every single person in a market needs a place to lay their head. Every single person needs water. Every single person needs certain essentials in this world that they need. So if you can figure out things that are based on people's needs versus just their wants. I know a lot of big businesses, startups focus a lot more on people's wants, which is fine. But if you focus on people's needs, you're always going to have customers. So I use this example on my social media a lot. And a lot of people laugh, but like think about like And I know this is going to be a little like funny, but like think about like toilet paper, dude. When you go to a grocery store or a store, do you debate whether you're going to buy it or not? No, you just buy it because you need it. It's a need. And since that's the case, toilet paper companies are going to make billions of dollars every year off of us because they're monetizing off of our needs. Every public restroom, every restroom in a school needs toilet paper. So like the companies that are supplying the toilet paper to the schools, to everybody, those are the people, making consistent money all the time. So number one, I look for people's needs, right? Number two, I look for consistency. I don't want to get into things that are seasonal. I want to get into things that are going to always day to day, month to month need supply, always needing it. The demand is always there. Okay. Number three, look for stuff that like the overhead is not too high. Where basically a business I can get into for a few hundred to a couple $1,000s, get in, make my money back pretty quickly within, I would say, at least the first 3 months, kind of businesses I look for, and businesses from there that generate cash flow. Now, these aren't businesses that are going to generate you, 7 figures off of your first month or anything like that. But these are businesses that, if you do it right, can be scaled to that level. Okay. So I look for things like that, dude. I look for things where competition is not as high. And I also look for things where if there is some competition, I can stand out within my competition and pretty much become the 1% of whatever I'm doing. So my criteria, I mean, I look for things like that. Look for things, dude, where you're not trading. And the last thing I'll leave you with is look for things that aren't trading your time for money. So I see so many consultants, right, that are out there selling their knowledge and their services, but they're selling their services on phone calls, and basically they're valuing their time. Like I have a friend of mine that does marketing consulting. He doesn't have an agency like mine where we're providing a service. He literally just talks to the business owner on the phone. So he'll do a call for like $500 for like a 1-hour session, which is great. Most lawyers charge that. But at the end of the day, if he's not on that phone call, he's not making money.
Right.
Right. So even though he's a highly paid consultant, and yes, he is making 6 figures. In fact, he's making, a lot, like mid 6 figures with his company. He's still trading his time for money. So he's always limited. So if he's not there, if he got sick, if he wanted to go on vacation, if anything happened to him, dude, his income goes away. So I look for things where even if I was sick for a whole month, if I literally didn't want to talk to anyone for the next 3 months, will it still bring me day-to-day income? That's what I look for, because I don't want to, the point of being an entrepreneur for me was, if I wanted to sleep in, I can do that. If I needed to watch my family, let's say my mom or someone was sick and I wasn't just in the mental state to sit there and run a company, is that company going to fall apart, or is it going to keep producing me money? So that's kind of what I look for. And I think most people don't. And I feel like they should spend a little extra time thinking about these things,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love those criteria because it gives you parameters to, within those, get creative and figure out like, oh, well, maybe I could do this, put together this idea, this demand, people need that, and like get creative within those criteria. I think that's cool. So while
Thanks.
you're building those companies, how do you go about identifying and picking those long-term, like big picture companies to make the huge exits, years down the road?
Yeah, good question. So I look for companies where the people that are in charge of them are experts in their space. So if, let's say I was going to do a startup within the real estate niche, let's just say, right, like a real estate software company. I want to partner up with someone, or I want to invest into someone, or spend my time, whatever, which is even more valuable than the money. I want to put it into people that, they're experts in that niche. So real estate, someone who has a huge background, whether it's being an investor, whether it's flipping, whether it's just being a real estate agent, they have that knowledge. I see so many people that start things that have no expertise, and they just do it out of just curiosity. So when you're an investor, you don't have to have expertise. You're throwing your money into something, and sometimes it's a gamble, and you're hoping to get an ROI. But if you want to be a good investor, if what I've learned from myself and from my mentors is you want to put it into things where they're the experts in what it is that they're doing. Number one, I would say is by far the most important, because if you don't work with people that are experts in the niche in the startup that they're starting, there's a lot of mistakes they're going to make because they just don't have the knowledge, market expertise, right? So I want to work with someone who's an expert. Number one. Number two, I want to work with a long-term business where the business model makes sense, and it's not basically a charity case. So a lot of people that start startups, they have these big ideas, and I think that's good. They want to help the world. I want to help the world too, right? But they don't actually know we're going to help a bunch of people, but they don't actually have like a solid revenue model. So I look for a company's revenue model. How's it going to make money? And yeah, I do look at it on my point. How's it going to make me my ROI? So that's important. And then number three, dude, I would say, I mean, there's so many different ways to determine this, but for me, it's also important for me to have some sort of passion, some sort of emotional tie, sort of, attachment to the business, whatever the niche is, if that makes sense. So if you don't believe in whatever you're investing into, that's a huge problem. And you're always going to be aggravated. You're always going to be, fighting with the people who's on the board or the people who own the company. So look for something where you share like the I guess I would say like the passion. Like real estate is something that I do like. So I could see myself being involved with a real estate startup, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. So it seems like you're looking for things where there are experts who are running it. There's a solid financial plan, like revenue plan, business model, so on and so forth. And then you have some of that passion for that specific thing so that it's fun while you're doing it
Yeah,
at the same time.
exactly.
Cool, cool. So I love that distinction between the two of those businesses. But I also am curious about this Uber, the
Okay.
six figures with Uber situation. Let's dive into that. How can somebody actually make six figures? And we are talking in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. That kind of six figures with
Correct.
Uber.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it's an arbitrage model. So I'll break down my story, right? So whenever I was at LSU, okay, at the time I was always trying to find ways to make money. I had to pay my tuition, I had to pay for my rent, just different things. My parents didn't contribute to those kind of things. I think maybe they helped me with my books, but other than that, it was all on me. So I was like, okay, what can I do to make money? So one of the first things was I knew that Uber was very popular. I knew that anyone could like essentially take their car as long as it qualified an Uber and could start making money right away. So I rolled up my sleeves. When I was at LSU, I started doing Uber around campus, around LSU. I did Uber in Baton Rouge. I did Uber in New Orleans, and I was doing it on my own. And I think also, and I'll make this point too, I think the best entrepreneurs are those that actually have done like the lowest position, because they know what it's like to be in those shoes. They also have the experience. People want to start things, but don't even want to do things that you have to do to even get started in that business. They want to avoid that. So I didn't, right? So I just started doing Uber. Now, keep in mind, when I first did it, I wasn't thinking of like scaling this huge, car fleet with six figures and all this and that. I was just trying to make extra money. So, and that's a lot of times how the best businesses are developed. So I started driving Uber. I did it very successfully. I did training online and stuff like that to get 5-star ratings, how to get the biggest tips from people, find the most efficient routes to drive. And so I realized that I could actually drive a few days out of the week and I could easily make in a day, I don't know, anywhere from $200 to $400. Okay. Busting my butt on Uber, doing the right routes. I would go to New Orleans, like I said, and I'd look for the events. I'd look for all the hot spots, everything. And I realized, damn, I'm making some really good, I'm making, making more than $1,000 a week minimum driving myself while I'm in college, just figuring out the routes, right? So me being an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, this is great, but the thing is, I'm trading my time for money. So going back to the whole thing, I'm trading my time for money. Every Uber driver is trading their time for money, right? That's exactly what they're doing. So I was like, okay, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't want to be driving this. So if if I stop driving, I stop making money with this stream, but it's bringing me a lot of money. So what's the compromise? So I was thinking, what if I could get someone else to do this? I could teach them to do exactly what I did, how to be a 5-star driver, how to get the highest amount of fare prices and stuff in their city. And then I just collect money off of it. Like I give them my car and I collect money. So I had a friend at the time, his name is Chris. I'm not going to go into huge detail about Chris, but Chris also went to school with me. He was going to LSU. He was living on campus. He had a lot of student loan debt. He didn't have a car, and he didn't have a job or any reliable way to get a job because he couldn't get to and from work. So I knew Chris was a guy that if I taught him to do what I was doing, he would really get into it. So I threw out the idea to Chris one day. I was like, Chris, look, I have a car, okay, that is qualified to go on Uber. You could start right away, start making money right away. You can use my car half the day because I don't need it. I lived on campus, so I really didn't need my car. So I said, what if I give you my car 12 hours a day? Okay. You go and drive it on Uber. I'll let you do errands or whatever you want to do, pick up your girlfriend, do some different things with the car. As long as you generate a certain amount of money every day doing Uber a certain amount a week, I will actually let you keep doing this. So it was a win-win. So when I told Chris about it, dude, he was phenomenally like so blown away. Like we thought this was genius. We thought we were going to get rich. We were so happy. So that's exactly what we did. I let him use my car. He didn't make the same numbers I was making right away, but I taught him how to do it. And eventually he was able to do that. And we'd split the money. So if Chris went out and made $400 in a day, I'd get 200, he'd get 200. We did it 50-50 at the time. And it was a win-win for me. I sat on my butt at home, building my other streams while I'm in college, doing my work, while Chris was out there making me money. And I said, okay, we did that for a few months. It was going pretty good. And then I had saved up enough money to where I could go get another car. And basically my whole thought was, damn, this is great. I got Chris to drive my car. I made a lot of money doing this without having to do much. Yeah, I'm not making 6 figures with Chris and I'm not a millionaire or anything with Chris. But my whole theory was if I could replicate this a second time, a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, and I could prove that this is a model that works, I could make some serious cash. I could turn this into a really big cash cow. So that's what I did, dude. I saved up some money, got a second car, and I basically put up a job ad in Craigslist in my city. It was really good. I had 80 to 100 people in the city that applied for it. So I had a lot of candidates. So what I do and what I teach in my program is the type of driver you're going to want to hire is people who don't have a car, people that are at least 25 or older because they have the lowest insurance cost, and people with good, clean driving records. So I found that there's a lot of people out there that maybe made financial mistakes when they were younger and don't have a car, but they still are good, hardworking, ethical people that if you gave them an opportunity, they can make you money. So I started hiring people like that. I hired people that were retired from, let's say, like the military, and they had a pension and they were bored. They were like in their 60s. They didn't have much to do. I hired single moms, okay, that wanted to make some extra money. I look for people like that who financially were struggling and needed something where they could have more flexibility in a schedule. So I figured it out like a science. I started getting another car. Now, what I found with each car was if I did everything the right way, the way I have the business set up, each car realistically can generate me $2,500, upwards of $4,000 per month per car net profit. And from there, now keep in mind, I have people in other cities now doing this, and they're making way more than that. But I looked at it the same way as real estate, right? So a house is an appreciating asset if you turn it into a rental income, right? So let's compare this to real estate so people can understand this. So real estate, if you wanted to have a rental income, essentially what you do is you'd put a down payment on a house, get a mortgage, get a loan, get a mortgage. You'd get a house, let's say that's like $200,000. And then you put it up for rent. And let's say you rent it out for $800 a month. Let's just pretend. Okay. Your net profit is whatever you're paying towards that property. I'm sorry. Your net profit is going to be the difference between your payment. So in other words, if you're charging $800 a month, and let's say your payment is $600, or let's say it's $500 a month, let's just pretend. Okay. You're going to net $300. Now, obviously you got to minus insurance costs, you got to minus expenses and this and that. Okay. But that's essentially what it is. Now that property is considered an appreciating asset. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, he talks about this, how a house is a appreciating asset once it's generating income. So the same theory is with cars. Most people think cars are depreciating assets, which they are. If you're not using a car or putting a car to work for you, it is a depreciating asset. Most cars lose value. However, if you take a car and you turn it into a cash flow positive business, it's an appreciating asset. Okay. So in the same way that a house can now be an appreciating asset, it can go from a depreciating to an appreciating asset if it's generating cash flow. Same thing with a car. Now, the better thing with a car is a car doesn't require $200,000. You can go, most of my cars, in fact, only are retail valued anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. Okay. And I'm putting almost no money down getting these cars, and I'm making profit and making my money back right away. So basically, dude, yeah, I take cars, I put drivers in them, I give them to drivers, they go and drive an Uber and Lyft. So next thing, why Uber and Lyft? Why not a taxi business? Okay, so the rideshare business, which is what Uber and Lyft is it's worth in the upwards of $30 to $40 billion right now. It's destroying the taxi market. So Uber and Lyft is where it's at, dude. Now, why Uber and Lyft again? Because think about it. If you've ever been in an Uber or you've ever driven Uber, as soon as you turn the Uber app on, Uber or Lyft send you the customers. So most businesses that people start, marketing agencies, real estate, e-commerce, whatever else, right? You have to start your business and you have to find a way to get your clients to you. You have to spend money oftentimes on marketing and get people there. And you have to take the risk of not knowing if someone's going to come or not. It's entrepreneurship is not easy. It's not easy to predict what your customers are always going to want to do. However, with this model, I don't have to do all that headache. I put a car in the market, Uber and Lyft send me the customers. I start making money right away. So in a sense, I use the word semi-guaranteed income. The reason I say semi-guaranteed is because as long as you have a good driver and a good car that's qualified and you're in a good location, like a city, you are going to start getting business right away. You don't have to generate any marketing. You don't have to do ads. You don't have to spend money on billboards. Your customers come directly to you. Okay. So that's kind of the beauty of this business. And there's other models like this. People are doing this with Airbnb. I happen to believe that Uber is better because there's so much volume of people that are always needing to get from point A to point B. Think about it, dude. Every city that has an airport, every convention center, every downtown, every hospital, every school, okay, every sports event, stadiums, concerts, right? These people always need transportation. Okay, airports are 24/7. So as long as that exists, people always need Uber and Lyft. Okay, so essentially, dude, it's a good business model because I'm leveraging Uber and Lyft, and I know it's one of those businesses, dude, where I know I'm going to make money. I don't have to think like, damn, I hope this works out. I hope I make my money back, because I know that Uber and Lyft are going to do all the work for me. Okay. So I scaled the business up. Basically, I do it in Baton Rouge and do it also in New Orleans. We do very good. I have 10 plus cars now that I do. I have someone that actually came in with me and partnered. We bought a bunch of cars and we did the business model, dude. And it's great. And so I've been doing this since college. Not many people knew about it. It was low key. I didn't really want to tell people about it because I realized, I found a gold mine and I don't want a bunch of people starting the same thing competing with me. But some of my closest friends over the years they always see me traveling on my social media because I travel a lot. They're always asking me, how are you doing this? What are you doing? And I tell them about the Uber business. And they were like telling me, Alan, can I pay you to show me how to do the same thing in my city? And I really didn't want to. But two of my friends convinced me to do it. I showed them how to do it, and they replicated the same model and are making really good money in their cities. So I realized, this is a duplicatable thing. It's not just something that can be done in Louisiana, if that makes sense. So that's the model, dude.
So it definitely seems duplicatable, but why would you tell anybody else about it? Like, why wouldn't you just keep reinvesting, keep building the fleet, and just expand, ridiculously? Like, why would you give away the keys to the kingdom?
Yeah, I guess what it is, it's probably more than one thing. So the first thing is I realized, well, people can do this all over the United States. Uber is available in 800 plus US cities currently. Um, Lyft is available in all 50 states. Lyft is not international, but Uber is. Uber is in 96 countries. So realistically, like, I can't do this in every city. I can't do this in every country. It is a business, where it's better to kind of be located where you're running the business, especially when you're first starting. Excuse me. But look, that is a good question. I was really selfish for a while because I didn't want to explain it to anyone really. But then I saw the amount of people. I was thinking, I guess this goes more into my passion side of how can I help the world? How can I give back? How can I help a lot of people? So I have so many friends, dude. So many friends that are people trying to get into entrepreneurship or people that are in entrepreneurship, and they struggle, dude. They struggle. They'll try e-commerce, they'll try crypto, they'll try Forex, they'll try marketing, they'll try starting a real estate business, wholesaling. Maybe they'll start whatever it is. They'll try to start something, and they won't see success, so they'll move on within a few weeks, and they'll try the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and they'll buy people's courses and programs, and they'll just never see success. And a lot of times, dude, is because they don't stay, number one, focused on one thing. That's always a problem because I believe we live in an ADHD world right now because everything's being thrown at us. So we as entrepreneurs don't know, should we be doing that, this, that, because everything is so enticing. But number two, a lot of these businesses that they start, they have no experience and they can't make money too well because they have to spend all their money risking and testing and doing trial and error. And so by that time that they put all the trial and error, they don't have any money left over. And now they're back from square one and they go and work a job. So it saddens me to see this. And I realized, well, if I could get that same guy to do a business where if he just puts the time and effort and starts it, he's going to start seeing money right away. He doesn't have to figure out a huge marketing strategy. That could change his life. So I think it really came into factor more for me when my second friend did it and I saw how much it changed his life. I was thinking, wow, like, people would pay for this. People would pay to learn a business that can make them almost semi-guaranteed income. And it really can make a difference for people. So I guess it has to do with me feeling like I should be doing something greater than just making money. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Keep in mind, dude, I did not want to start a program on this. I've had people beg me, my friends tell me that I need to do this. And I just realized, okay, well, what if I do that? So in the same way that Sam Ovens, I guess, could have expanded his consultant agency. He realized, maybe my greater purpose is training people how to become consultants, and that being my consulting and that being his consulting business. That's kind of where I'm at with this business right now. But um, I plan to maybe I'm still actually expanding the business right now, and I've had offers from people, several offers of people that want to buy it. So I'm thinking maybe I sell it and replicate the same model and start it again, because the offers that I'm getting right now are very hard to turn down. So that's kind of where I'm at, dude. So I think it's just wanting to really just look at the big scale of the world and the impact I could have.
And so, one more time, what's the name of the actual program? How can people find it?
So it's called Car Fleet Academy. I started in August. I launched it on a live webinar. Since then, I've had over 200 people that have enrolled into it. And I have people in 50 plus cities that are doing it. I have people in Latin America, Canada, and Australia that started it that are making money right now. And basically, dude, the web link is CFA, or I'm sorry, carfleeta.com. We've changed it a few times for domains, but it's carfleeta.com. So CARFLEETA.com. Basically, it just brings you to a landing page. It shows you what's included in the program, what's included in the course. And you could just, if someone wanted to purchase it, they can. I'm not recommending or telling anyone they need to do that. You could essentially go and start this business on your own, trying to figure it out. But a lot of people, us entrepreneurs wanting to avoid people's mistakes, that's kind of the people that I put the program out for. So I actually have students currently that they're generating. I have students right now that are generating upwards of $5,000-6,000 with just one car in cities like Miami, LA, New York, Toronto. So they're making even more than I'm making with it, and they're expanding. I've had people that are everyday entrepreneurs started. I've had people who have no experience in cars that are doing it. I have car salesmen that have bought this and started this business. So it's literally anyone, single moms. I've had do this. I've had retired people from the Navy that are doing this currently, and they're using it as a way to retire and create a retirement income for them. So it really can be for anyone. And I also teach people who don't have that much capital or don't have good credit. I teach them how they could actually get their first car almost for free if they follow the strategies that I figured out how to do, and some hacks in the market.
Awesome, man. Well, I very much appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing your journey and sharing the business model and sharing with people how they can get started with it. So,
For sure.
um, I appreciate you coming on here and yeah, thank you very much for your time.
All right, Ben. It was good to be on.
Absolutely. And to everybody who's watching and listening, I want to thank y'all very, very much. Y'all rock. I love y'all to death. Y'all are the reason that I do this show. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Alan, and I'll see all of you on the next
Okay. Sounds good, man.